But Payne in the second. Levert. Payne knocks it down. Rondo's on the run. Stops. Hits Love. Love fires. Cavs reset with a fresh 14. Under 3 to go in the half. Garland works on Holiday. Pause it for a moment. Shovels to Mobley. Garland, step back three, drew a foul, knocks it.
Oh, ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, tournament agents, you are listening live to episode number 45 of the All Things Cleveland Cavaliers podcast. Brandon Lewis, Joey Snyder, as always.
What a fun show we have for you guys today. Oh man, we got some Sexton talk. Some news on the Sexton front, some crazy stuff we got to talk about, some potential trade scenarios that we got to go through that are starting to heat up. And Brandon, sometimes where there's smoke, there is fire. Mm-hmm. And then we got a nice little game that we're going to be playing called Redrafting the Rebuild.
Yeah,
going
I like it.
Going through from 2018 till now when we started this rebuild with Collin Sexton's draft class. We're going to be looking at all the players, and as if they were who they are right now, we knew who they're going to become, and we're going to try and build ourselves somewhat of a decent team. But I got to tell you, as we do this, and we talked a little bit about this before we came on, the Cavs have drafted very well. Let's just say that it's going to be very hard to beat what the Cavs actually drafted. So, Brandon, to get it started, Collin Sexton, trade rumors going crazy. The Cavaliers seem to have interest in Utah Jazz shooting guard Donovan Mitchell, one of 7 teams. I know that the Knicks have offered the Jazz, I believe it was a package of Obi Toppin, 2 other players. I don't remember who. I know it was not RJ Barrett. It was not Julius Randle. You may have to look that up.
Yeah, I can try to
but also 5 first-round picks, and the Utah Jazz said no. So I don't know if the Jazz are looking for a better player. I would have to assume they are, because 5 first-round picks is absolutely crazy. It's absolutely crazy for 5 first-round picks. So
for the record,
okay.
this is what the Knicks offered.
Okay.
They offered Obi Toppin,
right?
Evan Fournier,
ooh,
cash,
okay.
2 unprotected first-round picks, and then 3 protected first-round picks.
Yeah, see, those protections are going to kill you unless they're very low like top 3 protected. But if it's anything more than top 3 protected, it's almost, you might as well just, because you don't know. I mean, a combo of Jalen Brunson and Donovan Mitchell, with Julius Randle, if he actually starts playing the way he played 2 years ago, could be lethal. So that's rough. I don't know. Maybe they're just not willing to get rid of RJ Barrett, who I think would have to be in the deal. But I just don't view RJ Barrett as a star of the future, or a guy who's going to really even give you more than what a bench player would. And Knicks fans might, be screaming at me, right, as this goes live. But I just do not view RJ Barrett as that player. Getting back to the Cavs' interest in Donovan Mitchell, though, I am slightly concerned. I love Donovan Mitchell. I do. I really, really, really like Donovan Mitchell. But we just had this conversation last week. 2 small guards, can it work? And I've said this a few times. I've said this to a lot of our coworkers here at Believe in Media, and one in particular stands out, Joey Ewell. I said, I don't think Sexton is that far behind Donovan Mitchell. And he's like, he told me I'm absolutely crazy. Yes, Donovan Mitchell is a better player than Collin Sexton, but he's also, I believe, 2 years older than Collin Sexton. I mean, you're splitting hairs there. I think 22 and 24. They're both extremely young. but I kind of have this. I have that feeling. Like, to me, Sexton is probably the best player that the Jazz are going to get in any deal that anyone's going to offer them. To me, Collin Sexton could go to the Jazz and be an all-star. That's the type of place where I can see him going. And he's 22 years old. He gets a decent deal, less than Donovan Mitchell has right now. Donovan Mitchell, I believe, is 30-some million a year.
Yep, correct.
And I think that the Jazz could offer Sexton, 5 years, 120 million, saves them money, and they get a guy who I believe is an all-star. The question just becomes, are you willing to give up Collin Sexton? And you probably have to give up. You probably throw Jetty in there. You'd probably have to throw somebody else in. I mean, it'd be a sign and trade, but you'd probably have to throw someone else in there to make the salaries match. And are you still going to give up 5 first-round picks? No. I mean, I wouldn't. 5 first-round picks is absolutely insane. I understand. The Cavs picks are probably. If you have Donovan Mitchell with Darius Garland, Evan Mobley, and Jared Allen, holy crap! I mean, come on. But I kind of feel that I feel like if I was going to make that trade, my idea would probably be and this is really hard for me to say.
You're just going off the cuff right now.
This is hard to say just because I'm trying to make it somewhat feasible and realistic as to what the Jazz are probably looking to get back and what the Cavs are willing to give up. I would probably say Collin Sexton, Jetty, Okoro, and I really don't want to get rid of Okoro, but Okoro, and then I would do maybe 3 unprotected picks, but in different years. So maybe 1 next year, and then 3 years next year, 4 years, and 6 years.
I believe you can only trade every other year your first round pick.
Right, but but the Cavs are so young; they're going to be very good for a very long time. So I think that you would, if you wanted to try and get away with 3 picks, you would probably have to do this year and then 4 years from now and 6 years from now, or you'd have to give or 4 first rounders. But I'm not giving 5, especially not giving up Sexton and Okoro. I think Okoro is just too much upside right now, especially from what we've been hearing, as we talked about last week. If you haven't checked it out, go back and listen. And to me, Sexton is an all-star on a team like the Jazz. So, I want to get your thoughts, but it's just a really weird thing, because my opinion is, if you're willing to give all of that up, go get Durant.
And I agree. And so, listen, this is a tweet that I saw. This tweet caught my eye this morning when I was doing research for our show. And I apologize if I do butcher this name. This is Evan Demiro. He covers the Cavs for Fear of the Sword. And he says,
Dumerol,
yeah.
Okay.
He says, quote, "I don't think people realize that trading for Donovan Mitchell would negate the Cavs' ability to sign Evan Mobley to a max rookie contract. I wouldn't reach into Cleveland calling Utah. It's just due diligence."
I think, yeah. I mean, you can only have, I think, 2, and then
2 max odds, and then you can obviously massage the money whichever way you need to. Somebody would have to take what's in that situation. But I mean, here's the thing. I don't really know if adding Donovan Mitchell, how much better does that make the Cavs?
A lot.
Okay, so you think a lot. I don't know how much better that actually makes the Cavs.
You're talking about having a 20-plus point scorer and a 20-plus point scorer and a 10 assist guy at and a budding superstar at the point guard, alongside of one of the top shooting guards in the league in Donovan Mitchell.
Here's my thing, though, right? Mitchell, to me, needs the ball in his hand a lot. And so does Garland to me to be the best that he can be. So fit-wise, I don't know if those two in the backcourt together exactly fit.
I think it would be very interesting, but like I said, I think it would work in the same way I think that Garland and Sexton could work, where Mitchell would have to understand like on the Jazz, he had Mike Conley, who was hurt, who was usually hurt half the year.
Yes.
And when he was healthy, he wasn't exactly the Mike Conley of old. He wasn't really fast. He was a little slower. He had Rudy Gobert, who defensive player of the year for what, 2 or 3 years in a row or something like that.
Mm-hmm.
But not a team that really ran a whole lot in transition. So to make that, to switch over to a team that does run in transition, how fast he is, how fast Garland is, how fast Mobley is, that would be a really good fit. But again, I don't see him as a massive upgrade over Collin Sexton. They're both 6'1". They're both extremely athletic. Mitchell's a bit of a better shooter. He's also a good defender as well. But it's almost like he's just a bit of a better version of Collin Sexton.
See, and I agree with you, which is why I'm saying I don't know about this deal, because if I said, Donovan Mitchell would be the perfect fit, then I'd basically be a hypocrite, because I've been saying that Garland and Sexton don't fit together all along. So the way I see it is you're replacing Sexton with a little bit better Collin Sexton. But as I've said all along, I still would love if Sexton were to come off the bench and be the number 1 6 man for the Cavs.
Yeah, but for me, that would only make sense if he's playing. I shouldn't say he's playing on his qualifying offer. Like I said last week, I think the best thing the Cavs can do is trade Sexton, but trade him to who and for what? Because no matter what, you're going to be taking on more money, and the Cavs can only take on so much more money.
Yeah, exactly.
So,
I do think if you bring in a guy like Mitchell, who obviously has a little bit more better credentials at this point than Sexton, I think you're even more taking away playing time from either LeVert or Abaji, more than likely at that point.
If you're talking about taking playing time away from LeVert, that's a different story, because you have somebody in there. Donovan Mitchell he's a star. He is a star. He's not just an all-star. Donovan Mitchell is a phenomenal player. Can he coexist and get his numbers next to Darius Garland? I do think he can, but I think that's more on Darius Garland because of how good of a facilitator he became last year, and how good Donovan Mitchell is getting to the rim. He's one of the most elite players in getting to the rim. Definitely better. Collin Sexton is good. Donovan Mitchell can get to the rim and can finish. He can hit the three. He's a 3-level scorer. He can defend. He's a very, 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 very good player. I think that they have a better chance at coexisting next to each other than Sexton does, but I think Sexton still has not hit his peak. And I think because of that, he's still trying to get to where he needs to be, whereas Mitchell already is where he needs to be and can probably coexist and have, and him and Garland can thrive together at the 1 and 2. So I'm okay with him taking minutes away from someone like LeVert. Maybe you look to move LeVert somewhere else. It does open up possibilities for the Cavs. But I just think, as this team is constructed, if you're willing to give that much up for Donovan Mitchell, and yes, I understand Donovan Mitchell's 24, and Kevin Durant's 34, but Kevin Durant is still going to be Kevin Durant in 3 and 4 years. He's not going to go downhill anytime soon. I would say probably by the end of this contract is when you would start to see him, just start to go downhill. So if you're willing to give all of that up for Donovan Mitchell, I would say call the Nets and see what it would take to get Kevin Durant. If you're going to give up Sexton and Okoro and you'd probably have to give up a better player than a Jetty, but maybe like a Markkanen or a Levert and 4 or 5 first round picks, then I would go after Kevin Durant.
Yeah,
because that
that
makes sense.
That I agree with you. Now, obviously, yesterday the Nets did what I asked them to do forever, and that was basically tell Kevin Durant, no, you're playing here for 4 years. So it seems like Brooklyn's going to be a formidable force. But to your point, yeah, I mean, if you're going to give it that much, to me, Durant is more of a championship changer than Donovan Mitchell is. And Donovan Mitchell still doesn't solve what would be the Cavs' biggest issue, which is even if you do get Donovan Mitchell, they still need another wing. And obviously, Donovan Mitchell is not that type of player. So to me, the Cavs need to go out. They need to, and maybe it is internally, right? Maybe one of a Okoro, Abaji, Levert, maybe one of these guys do step up. Maybe they do have what they feel like internally on their roster. They can solve that. But right now, we all know what the Cavs' biggest weakness is. We really don't think they need another shooting guard. We kind of feel like they have a lot of the same players. We really want to see what our buddy Clarence Wilson at Den of the Dogs says. That 6'8" type wing player, and Mitchell isn't that. So, if I'm the Cavs, if you're looking to move Sexton, which I obviously have been okay with from the beginning, to me, if you can get back a 3-and-D type player and some sort of maybe a late first round draft pick, I would take it at that point.
Yeah, I don't see any. I don't know who would give that up for Sexton. I mean, it's got to be the right fit or a team that's looking for a rebuild. As Sexton is still such a young player, so I think the Jazz really are a good fit as far as giving him a place to grow. But they do, if they're trying to rebuild, they do have to unload Donovan Mitchell, which to me is just ridiculous. He's 24 years old. You build around him.
Yeah.
But how long is that rebuild going to take? With by the time you actually build a decent team around him, he might be 20. He's going to be 28, 29 years old. So.
And still, to me, in his prime at that point, and let's face it,
yeah.
Utah's never really been, at least in my Utah's never really been a bad basketball team. They've either been really in the middle or they've never been. Utah's been a weird team. Obviously, they had those late '90s runs against Michael Jordan and the Bulls. They've had some chances to be like a top of the Western Conference team, but they never have really since the century turn been a real championship contender. But they've never really been at the bottom of the basement either. They're just a really well-run franchise. They're a great organization, and I agree with you. If Sexton goes there, I think it'd be a good start for him, and I think that he would perform well there and potential all-star status. But also, if you think about there, like going to the West, with all those guards in the Western Conference, that would be, I think, a tougher hill to climb rather than Mitchell now, who I think would be easily a walk-in all-star in the East.
You know what? I couldn't even say that he would be a lock. I mean, there's just a lot of really good players in the East. There's a lot of really good players in the West too, but I think that the East is probably almost more stacked at this point right now, especially with young talent. But it's a really weird situation to see that the Cavs are in on this Donovan Mitchell thing. Whether it's I think one of the big things is we don't know if it's true or not, but there's been a lot of reporting, a lot of sources saying that the Cavs have there were 7 teams interested, the Cavs being one of them. Like you said, maybe they're just doing their due diligence, but I just find it very weird that they would even inquire about Donovan Mitchell, seeing as the logjam they have at shooting guard, unless they are planning on playing Agbaji, Okoro, Levert at the 3, or like we talked about last week, you want to play smaller, you could put one of those at the 3. You want to play bigger, you put Markkanen at the 3 like they started last year, which was very fun to watch, and a lot of teams couldn't really figure it out. There's some teams who are even trying to emulate what the Cavs did last year. So it's just an odd thing for me to hear the Cavs are even inquiring about it.
The weird thing is, we both said last week, it kind of felt like the Cavs are just waiting for Sexton to sign his his qualifying offer and play with the Cavs last year. Well, it does sound like the Cavs are still waiting to sign the qualifying offer, but it sounds like they're also taking calls. So maybe that's what Sexton's waiting for. Maybe he's waiting to hear that they have a deal in place and then he'll sign and the Cavs are going to do a sign and trade. I mean, who knows what's going on because, as we keep saying here, we are literally a month away from training camp and it feels like things are going to heat up here in the next month. And, whatever happens. We're going to support the people that are on the Cavs come the 2022-2023 season. And at the end of the day, I think JV Bickerstaff and Kobe Allman and crew will put the best 15 players that are on the court. And if Donovan Mitchell's a part of that, he's a part of it. If Collin Sexton is a part of it, he's a part of it. And I think at this point, we just all have to react accordingly and see what happens. I think it's not really worth a ton of speculation because right now we don't know what's true and we don't know what's not true.
Exactly. Just like there was also rumors that they had explored or are still exploring with the Mavericks a Collin Sexton trade.
Yeah.
But I just don't see anyone on that team who the Cavs would want back. So unless it's revolved around a lesser player and a pick, like you said, I just don't know how that would work. And to even make the salaries match would be something, I don't even know how the Mavericks could make that work. The Cavs are just in a really good position right now. They, Sexton doesn't sign us, Sexton signs his qualifying offer. They got just a tiny bit of cap space. And if they're able to trade him, then they're obviously getting something in return. And if he signs his qualifying offer and then bounces after the season, we're going to have a whole lot more cap space, at the end of this year. And, like you said, we do got to sign Evan Mobley. But, back to your main point, which was we're going to root, for who the 15 players are on the Cavs. And that's because we always cheer for the name on the front, not on the back. Love Evan Mobley, love Jared Allen, love Darius Garland, love everybody on the Cavs, but I love Cleveland more.
Speaking of being in good shape, we are about to start our little game here, redrafting the 2018, 2019, 2020, 2021 NBA draft classes. All right, so Joey, we know that with the number 8 pick in the 2018 NBA draft, the Cleveland Cavaliers selected Collin Sexton. However, the question is, and the thought on everybody's mind, because Sexton has been all we have talked about on this podcast seemingly since the end of the season. Was he the right move in that situation at that time? When you go back and look at time today at that draft class.
Well, I do want to start. I want to start this off, and I want everyone to understand how we are doing this. This is going to be knowing who the players are today. The players have progressed the exact same way as they have from the time they were drafted until now. But we are just redrafting it, seeing if we can put together a really good Cavs team. So Luka Doncic, when he was drafted, is the Luka Doncic we know now. It's not any different. The best players are obviously going to go off the board first. And we're just going to take a look and see who is the best player on the board available to the Cavs in each of the last draft classes when we started the rebuild, starting with 2018 with Collin Sexton, and we're going to see what we end up with. But Brandon, as you said, 2018, a very, very good draft that year. Luka Doncic, Trae Young, Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, DeAndre Ayton, Michael Porter Jr., Mikhail Bridges, Jaren Jackson Jr., lots of good players. Collin Sexton, obviously. This, all those players would be off the board, I think, at 8. I think, it's really tough. If you're looking after that, you have Robert Williams from the Celtics, who has blossomed into he played hurt. He played at probably 50% in the playoffs and was just blocking everything, grabbing rebounds. I mean, the kid is going to be a ridiculously good center for a lot of years. You got Jalen Brunson in that draft class, who signed over $100 million contract with the New York Knicks.
Devontae Graham, Mitchell Robinson,
Anthony Simons, who blossomed big time this year with the Trailblazers.
Bruce Brown.
Yeah, Gary Trent Jr., Kevin Herter. A really, really good draft class. But I'm gonna let you go first. Who, knowing who probably would be off the board, and we could say this right now. I think you could take Luka, Trey, and Gilgeous-Alexander off the board right away.
Yeah.
I think Ayton's off the board as well.
I agree.
Michael Porter Jr. is a weird one because he had those back issues, but like I said, knowing where he is now, when he's healthy, he is definitely one of the biggest steals of that draft for the Denver Nuggets. They just seem to know how to draft very well. Mikhail Bridges, on the Phoenix Suns, great player. I think he would probably be gone. I think Jaren Jackson Jr. would probably go right before the Cavs at number 7.
I agree with you.
So,
and again, at 8, like that would leave Sexton at 8. Probably also, like you said, a Robert Williams. I am probably gonna say Devontae Graham.
I'm gonna go, and I'm gonna say, and this is gonna be odd, maybe, but I'm going to stay with Collin Sexton.
Okay.
And you guys will know in a little bit why.
And I think I already know if it's what we talked about in our pre-show meeting when we discussed this a little bit. I think I know why, but it's a good point. But yeah, I think it's definitely a tough choice. I mean, again, you got Sexton, you got Robert Williams, you got Bruce Brown, you got Devontae Graham. To me, all very good, similar like players. I don't think you can go wrong with really any player in that situation.
No, but I would stick with Collin Sexton because I think of all the players after him, Robert Williams would probably be the closest, and it would be hard for me to pass up on Robert Williams. But I would take Sexton because Jalen Brunson had just had his best season, which his best season has not even come close to Collin Sexton's best season. Anthony Simons had a great season with the Trailblazers, but he was the best player on one of the worst teams. We always talk about that. So how legit is he really? Devontae Graham is a good pick, but I just think Sexton is better. Gary Trent Jr. just started coming on, the last 2 years. So I'm going to stick with Collin Sexton in this scenario. I think that he probably would still be the 8th best player on the board.
I respect it.
But we are now moving on to 2019. So I have Collin Sexton. You have Devontae Graham.
Yes.
Now this draft is this one is unique, and it's unique because the Cleveland Cavaliers had 3 first-round picks in this draft. So I'm going to start this one off.
Okay.
John Morant is off the board. The Cavs pick number 5 this draft. They took Isaac Okoro. I'm sorry.
No, 2019 was Garland.
Sorry, Garland. But John Morant is gone at 1. I would say Garland is gone at 2. Zion Williamson I think he's still gone at 3. Now this is tough. RJ Barrett could be there at 5.
Yeah.
Jordan Poole could be there at 5, and Tyler Hero could be there at 5. I would probably take, in this situation, I'm going to take Jordan Poole.
Okay.
And we talked about it, but I'm taking Jordan Poole because I think he's just scratched the surface of what he can be. And he's done it on a team that's as good as the Golden State Warriors.
So here's my question about Poole, and this is why I'm not going to draft Jordan Poole this might be order to reach, you could say, but we know Golden State is one of the best teams in the NBA at drafting and developing players. if he didn't go to Golden State and get that opportunity to learn for a few years behind Steph Curry and behind Klay Thompson, who knows? I'm not sure if he develops into that type of player.
That's not the game, Brandon. That's not the game.
Maybe that's reaching. But hey, remember, I am not the best GM when it comes to this. Okay?
This is there is no cheating. This is they are the players that they are now.
That's not cheating.
Because I'm not saying that if you draft them and then they developed with the Cavs, I'm saying the players who they are right now, if they developed into the same players that they are right this moment.
Even that, I would still take, in my opinion, Tyler Hero over Jordan Poole at this moment. I think it's fair. I think Hero, Jordan, but scoring on the white comes off the bench in Miami. I'd be starting in Miami, but I'm not the coach or exposure is. But
he had a terrible sophomore season.
Yeah, but I mean, he bounced back. He was obviously great 6 man of the year this year. Again, I don't know why he was 6 man, but I think Heroes.
And I think that's why is because he was running the second team. He needed the opportunity to be the scorer, and that's what he was given, and that's what he did. I think he's probably going to start this year. If they keep him on the bench again and coming off as a 6 man, I actually would be a little bit surprised because I do view him as a starter. And we did talk before. I said I'd probably take Tyler Hero, but I'm changing my pick just because Jordan Poole, he can get to the rim, he rebounds, he's just a lethal shooter. And I think that you put him next to Collin Sexton, you can rotate them in between the 1 and the 2. You can even probably put Poole, maybe rotate him between the 2 and the 3 as well. So I'm taking that based purely on what's what I'm looking for. The ability to
fit
based on the ability to play multiple positions. Give the Cavaliers options. Versatility. There it is.
Okay, so you have Jordan Poole, Collin Sexton. I have Devontae Graham, Tyler Hero. We're moving on. 2020 NBA draft. This was the draft that was a 5th pick. The Cavaliers selected Isaac Okoro, and of course, this draft was the draft that I believe was that the Anthony Edwards draft.
Yes, Anthony Edwards, LaMelo Ball, James Wiseman. A very, very odd draft, not a very deep draft at all. We did not pick our.
That's right. I totally forgot about that. That's on me.
We didn't pick number 26 or number 30. that the Cavs had for 2019.
You're right. That's on me. I forgot about that. Because in real life, they picked Dylan Windler and Kevin Porter. Oh,
Kevin Porter would be off the board before the Cavs got a chance to pick. And that's just, just the way it goes.
Gee, I mean, the guy I would just, it's a fantasy pick that I would love to have, even though he's not very good, but just to have on the team would be Bol Bol.
Don't tease me, sir. Don't tease me. I would say, he's been hurt a lot, but I'd say 20 probably would be, I would take either Nikolai Alexander Walker,
okay,
or Hachimura might be there at 26 because he's been hurt a lot. But I'm gonna probably go, and I'm gonna stick with my gut, and I'm gonna go with I'm gonna say Hachimura would probably be there at 26.
Okay, yeah, for me, it's really tough because I think there's a lot of good solid players in this draft. that I think would not probably be available. Your guys like your Grant Williams, your Brandon Clarks.
Grant Williams would be off before 26. Brandon Clark would be close. So I will allow it.
That's that because I think Clark is the best player of all this group. I think Matisse Thybulle would probably be off the board by then.
He'd be off the board.
Maybe a guy like Taylor Horton Tucker might be there.
He would probably he could potentially be there.
He's had some flashes with the Lakers, a kid who I like. So for me, it's between Clark and Tucker. I like Brandon Clark, man. I like the way he's played in Memphis.
I do too.
Really great scorer. He compliments Bane and John Morant well. So I'm going to take Brandon Clark.
All right. And then at pick 30, I'm going to go with I'm going to, and looking at we were looking at a bunch of redrafts that we've seen before. I'm going to go with Jackson Hayes.
I concur with that. I concur with that.
Jackson Hayes would be there at 30, and I would take him.
Yeah, so, no, I agree with that. I will concur with that. I'll also take Jackson Hayes.
So as of right now, my team consists of Collin Sexton, and then Jordan Poole, Hachimura at my power forward, Jackson Hayes at center,
and I have Devontae Graham at point. I have Hero at the 2, and then I have Clark at the 4, but he can also play the 3 a little bit. And then I have Hayes at center.
So we're moving on now to the 2020 NBA draft, which after the first 2 picks, it was not a very deep draft class at all. There were some notable players, but nothing. A lot of guys that still obviously have are going to get better as the years go on, but we're taking them as they are right now. And this one you had Anthony Edwards go number 1. I think Wiseman went 2. LaMelo Ball went 3. Patrick Williams from the Bulls, he was 4. The Cavs took Isaac Okoro, and I think we're going to pick the same player here, and that's I'm taking Desmond Bane.
Yeah.
Desmond Bane is going to be there at number 5, and that's what I'm taking. Just an absolutely lethal shooter. Another, he can play the 2. He could play the 3. I think you could swap out him and Poole constantly, and 2 just deadly shooters on the team. So right now, I have. I got a pretty solid team, I think, with the exception of my center, and this is also assuming everyone. This is assuming that we have not signed Jared Allen. We didn't make any trades, any moves, anything like that. This is just a redraft.
Yeah, again, Devontae Graham for me, Tower Hero. Then we both have Desmond Bane. You took Jordan Poole as well as Collin Sexton. You have Hachimura. I have Brandon Clark, and then we both took Jackson Hayes as well. So I think 2 very similar teams, at least for the starting 5. I think the players that we swapped out both have a very similar skill sets. So I think it's just really a preference of who comes down in that spot, which usually most drafts it comes down to anyway.
And the last draft being last year's draft, and this one's going to break my soul a little bit.
Oh my God. Can we trade up to number 2 or number 1?
No, we cannot, because unfortunately, I do believe the number 1 and number 2 picks, and I'm not going to say in what order because it doesn't really matter, but Cade Cunningham would still be 1 or 2, and the other one would be Evan Mobley going 1 or 2.
I don't know. Maybe Scotty Barnes over Cunningham.
If you look at the players right now, I think Scotty Barnes could be he is going to be an all-star small forward in this league. But as I have said, Cade Cunningham is going to be, he had a lot of triple doubles last year. He's good. He's going to be an all-star as well. And as I've said it every podcast, and I'm going to say it again, Evan Mobley is going to be a generational talent.
Yes, I agree.
I'm assuming those 2 are off the board, which is why with my pick at number 3, I am taking Scotty Barnes.
Well, the crazy thing is, so I agree. If we're saying that Cade Cunningham goes to the Cavs, take Scotty Barnes, or both of our liners, I think he'd be a perfect fit. But let's say, for the sake of argument, Detroit or why am I blanking here?
Houston,
yeah. Well, Houston took Jalen Green, right? Yeah.
right.
I have no idea why I'm blanking out right now. So let's say, for the sake of argument, Detroit or Houston take Scotty Barnes with the second pick. In our lineups, like the way this draft would work out, is Cade Cunningham a fit for the Cavs at that point? Like that's a very interesting discussion.
But I think that you have to understand when you're drafting, you're taking the best player. You have to take the best player. You're not looking when you're drafting the top 3. You're taking the best player. You're not looking for fit, because there might not, you might need a center, and there's not a center that's that great until number 10. And I'm not saying last year, I'm just saying, a draft in general. So for me, just taking the Cavs drafted number 3 and knowing how good he is, and I'm assuming Cade and here's the thing is, you could even say Scotty and Mobley would go 1 and 2, and then I'm still taking Cade, because who was better than Cade Cunningham?
I could make an argument. Jalen Green, Josh Giddey.
No, Josh Giddey was very good, but he wasn't better than Cade.
See, I'm not the biggest fan of Cade Cunningham. I think that's where I'm having the biggest problem is I don't see Cade like you do. I don't see Cade as that generational turnaround all-star every year type talent.
I'm not saying he's a generational talent, but I'm saying that he's a 6'8" point forward who had a whole lot of triple doubles last year. Yeah, he struggled in some games too, but so did Evan Mobley, so did Scotty Barnes. They're rookies. It's going to happen. But if you're looking at who's going 1 and 2, it's probably still going to be Cade, and it's going to be Mobley. I don't think Scotty Barnes jumps them, even though he won Rookie of the Year. I think that.
I'd be happy with that. I'd take Scotty Barnes. I'm just saying I think Barnes is a better player than Cunningham. It's just me.
Well, who would you take over? Who would you take over Cunningham?
I honestly think I would take Giddey over Cunningham right now. I honestly think I would take Giddey over Cunningham right now.
I just cannot. I wouldn't be. I really like Josh Giddey. I just don't think that he's not better right now, and I think long term he's not going to be better than Cade Cunningham.
Hey, I could be completely wrong on this, as you guys already figured out. I am terrible at drafting in the NBA.
But we are assuming that Cunningham and Mobley are off the board. We decided this.
Okay, well, we decided that it's an easy pick. You're handing in the card for Scotty Barnes.
Exactly. So my team would end up being Collin Sexton, Jordan Poole, Hachimura, Jackson Hayes, Desmond Bane, and Scotty Barnes. I think that's not
a bad. I would say that's a playoff team. That's a decent team.
I don't know if it'd be playoff, but I think that Sexton would be a very aggressive point guard who I think even though he's a scorer, I think he would learn to pass the ball. Desmond Bane is good at facilitating. Jordan Poole is good at facilitating. Bane and Poole both have the same type of DNA where they are gritty, get the ball by any means type players. You can put them at the 2-3, and actually I probably you can even make a case to have Sexton come off the bench as a 6th man, and have Poole at point guard. Have Poole at point guard, Bane, Scotty Barnes, Hachimura, and then Hayes.
And that's how I probably would do your lineup.
Yeah, to me that is and Scotty Barnes is in the same mold as those guys. That's a very, very tough, very mentally tough team.
Yep.
That would be very fun to watch.
So again, very similarly, I have Devontae Graham, Tyler Hero, Scotty Barnes, Desmond Bane, Brandon Clark, Jackson Hayes.
Theirs is very much the same mold. Just I think with the exception of Tyler Hero, a very, very tough
Yes.
team.
And even though I said, like, I think Hero should be in the starting lineup, I think in my situation, he would probably be the one that comes off the bench because you probably have Graham, Bain, Barnes, Clark, and Hayes would probably be my five.
Yeah, and you have the reigning sixth man of the year coming off your bench.
So folks, this is why I don't like, even when people are like, "Oh, who would you draft there?" Like, to me, I don't love doing redrafts a lot because I think I tend to overthink a lot. Of scheme fit when it comes to these guys, because to me it's hard because certain players develop in certain situations. So to me, it's hard to say, like, oh, you know, a guy like Jordan Poole or a guy like Tyler Hero, if they go to a crappy organization, you know, how good that they were going to be. So I think that's where mentally I have a hard time with, well, yeah, I could pick this guy, but it really did take him 3 years to develop at Golden State. I mean, do I really want to turn to the card for that? Like,
yeah, you overthink it. It's how they are right now. Jordan Poole is going to be very good for a lot of years on a really good team. But we want to know what you guys think. Go back, look at the draft classes from 2018 on. Let us know who your redraft class would be from 2018, 2019, 2020, and 2021. Taking the best players off the board, submit it in, and maybe we'll talk about it on the next podcast. See who came up with the best. Who came up with the best lineup. Potentially
that will be episode number 46. We have 2 more episodes before this man Joey Schneider goes on vacation for a week. However, Mel Kirby from Guardians of the COE is going to fill in for Joey, so it'll be really fun that week. Looking forward to pick Mel's brain and a lot of I think that'll be right around training camp, so I'll be looking forward to getting Mel's opinion on a lot of the Cavs off-season moves, as we haven't talked to Mel about the Cavs since the All-Star break in February. So that'll be a really fun podcast. But of course, next week, me and you right back at it, and hopefully we'll get some news for Sexton. But as I told you right before we started the recording, you know it's going to come when you're on vacation.
Oh, absolutely. I know I'm not going to be here for it, and then I'm going to listen to it and get pissed off. And that's just the way the world works. But Brandon, another episode gone. Had a blast. Loved it. And I would tell you that there's only one thing left to do, but instead, I'm going to steal the line from our man Clarence from Den of the Dogs, and let everyone know, if you don't bleed wine and gold, you don't matter.
And that'll do it for this week's episode of the All Things Cavs podcast. We'll see you guys next week, and don't forget to let them know.